A woman invites her date to volunteer at a soup kitchen instead of going to a five-star restaurant, gauging his willingness to give back. Maya Alden, 31, with olive skin, shoulder-length curly brown hair and kind hazel eyes, slipped into a modest navy blue dress and tied her hair into a loose bun. She wasn't preparing for a lavish date but something far more revealing. Across town, Hudson Bramley, 34, tall and sharply dressed in an Armani blazer over a crisp white shirt, had no idea that his evening was about to trade candlelight for fluorescent bulbs and silverware for plastic trays. Maya had met Hudson through a mutual friend. Everyone knew he was rich, successful, and confident. But what Maya didn't know was if his heart was as refined as his resume. That was what tonight was about. Not romance, not roses, a test of empathy. Hudson stepped out of his Bentley with an amused grin, expecting French cuisine. Instead, Maya stood outside a brick building with chipped paint and a paper sign reading, Bayview Community Shelter Soup Kitchen. Her hands were in the pockets of a gray cardigan, but her eyes were steady. "This isn't the restaurant," he said, glancing around. "It's not," Maya replied, "but I thought it might show me something better than a wine list." At first, Hudson laughed, thinking it was a prank. But Maya's expression didn't budge. "We'll be serving tonight, not eating." He looked past her into the crowded room. People with tired eyes lined up for meals. The scent of mashed potatoes and canned corn filled the air. Maya offered him a pair of gloves and an apron. Hudson hesitated, but something in Maya's gaze, steady, expectant, pulled him forward. Inside the kitchen, the clanging of trays and hum of conversation replaced the soft jazz Hudson had imagined. He rolled up his sleeves, reluctantly tied the apron, and stood behind a steaming tray of rice. Maya, already at work, ladled soup with practiced hands. "You've done this before," he said. "Every other weekend," Maya smiled. "It keeps me grounded." He noticed how she spoke to each person who passed through the line. "Hi, Ms. Tilda. How's your ankle? Mr. Bruce, I saved your favorite tonight." The people lit up at her words, grateful for more than just food. Hudson's movements were clumsy at first. He dropped a spoon, spilled beans. But he kept at it, silently observing the way Maya connected. An elderly man with weathered skin and a frayed beanie approached Hudson's station. "You knew?" he asked. "First time," Hudson replied, offering a generous scoop of rice. "Don't worry, city boy," the man chuckled. "You're doing fine." Hudson cracked a genuine smile. It surprised even him. Maya caught the moment from the corner of her eye and smiled. It wasn't about skill, it was about showing up. Later, as they washed trays in the back, Maya handed him a damp towel. "So," she asked, "still wishing we'd gone to Le Pavillon?" Hudson shook his head slowly. "Honestly, I think I got more out of this." As the shift wound down, Maya sat beside Hudson on a crate behind the shelter. Her cardigan sleeves were rolled up, her dress speckled with soup stains. Hudson looked at her, really looked at her, not as the woman he was trying to impress, but as someone whose heart beat differently. "My father used to come here," Maya said softly. "After my mom passed, we had nothing for a while." Hudson was silent. "I bring people here on the first date because I want to know if they care about the world. If they can listen without judgment." He nodded. "No one's ever stayed past the first shift," she added. "Then I guess I'm breaking that trend," Hudson said, surprising them both. Hudson didn't return to his penthouse that night feeling like the man who had stepped out of his Bentley. He felt lighter, stripped of the arrogance he hadn't even known he carried. The next morning, instead of heading straight to his office, he looked up the shelter's website and signed up for the next volunteer shift. No one was watching, no Maya, no expectations, just a choice. At the shelter, the same familiar faces greeted him. He remembered their names this time. He remembered the way Tilda liked her tray double-wrapped and how Bruce preferred his coffee black. Maya wasn't there yet, and for the first time he felt anticipation not for impressing her, but for being part of something meaningful. When Maya arrived halfway through the shift, her eyes widened. "You came back," she said. "I wasn't done," Hudson replied, and he meant it. During their break, Maya handed Hudson a sandwich and sat beside him on the back steps. "Why'd you come back?" she asked gently. He thought for a moment. "Because I realized I didn't know what it meant to care beyond my own circle." "You showed me something I'd been missing," Maya nodded. "Most people don't like to be shown their blind spots." "I didn't," Hudson admitted. "But I needed to be." They didn't talk about business or luxury. They talked about their childhoods, their fears, and the moments that changed them. For Hudson, this soup kitchen had become one of those moments. What had started as a strange detour on a fancy night out was now shaping his outlook in ways he hadn't expected. Later that week, Hudson met up with his usual circle of friends, stockbrokers, venture capitalists, and tech entrepreneurs. They sat in their usual high-end lounge, sipping aged whiskey and boasting about vacation homes. When Hudson mentioned his volunteer shift, they laughed. "You're flipping mashed potatoes now?" one of them teased. Hudson didn't laugh. "You should try it," he said calmly. Might teach you more about people than quarterly reports. The table fell silent. Hudson realized he didn't belong in that version of his life anymore. Not fully, not blindly, and that was okay, because something was shifting and he wanted to follow that change. A week later, Hudson invited Maya out, this time for a simple home-cooked meal at his place. No private chef, no imported wine, just spaghetti, garlic bread, and mismatched plates. When she walked in, she smiled at the effort. "You really didn't outsource this, cross my heart," Hudson said, holding up sauce-stained hands. They ate at his kitchen counter, laughter echoing through the space. For the first time, Hudson wasn't performing. He wasn't curating an experience, he was living one. After dinner, they sat on his balcony and watched the city lights flicker like distant stars. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know," she said, "I didn't think you'd make it past the front door that night." "I didn't think I would either," he replied, "but I'm glad I did." From that point on, Sundays became sacred for them. Not in a religious sense, but in a ritual of giving. Hudson, now a regular at the soup kitchen, began organizing food donations through his company. He quietly paid for repairs to the building's heating system and helped create a mentorship program for young volunteers. Maya watched him evolve, not with fanfare but with steadiness, and as they served side by side, something deepened between them. A bond rooted in humility and shared purpose. What started as a test had become a tradition, one that fed more than just the hungry, it fed their souls. One night after a long shift, Maya and Hudson found themselves alone cleaning up the last of the trays. The room was quiet. The scent of soup and bleach lingered. Maya turned to him. "Why me?" she asked. "You could date anyone in your world, women with the same background, the same wealth." Hudson leaned against the counter. "Because you don't need chandeliers to shine. You taught me how to be more than my bank account." Maya didn't reply right away. She simply stepped closer, took his hand, and whispered, "That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me." It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Word of Hudson's transformation spread quickly, through tabloids, gossip blogs, and corporate whispers. Was it an image stunt? A publicity gimmick? When asked during an interview, Hudson said, "If it takes public attention to spotlight community needs, then let it. But this started with a woman who challenged me to care." That soundbite made headlines. But Maya didn't care for the noise. All that mattered to her was that he kept showing up, that his actions didn't change when the cameras turned off, and he didn't disappoint. Months later, Hudson was honored at a gala for his contributions to social work. He invited Maya not as his date, but as the one giving the speech. "I didn't plan on falling for a man that night," she told the audience. "I planned to walk away if I didn't see kindness." The room laughed, then listened. But what I saw in Hudson wasn't just generosity, it was transformation. And that's the kind of wealth that matters. The applause was thunderous, but the only person Maya looked at was him. Hudson and Maya soon partnered on a new project, an outreach center offering meals, job training, and mental health services for the unhoused. It wasn't easy. Bureaucracy was thick and funding was tight, but they fought together. They didn't just serve, they built. Every brick, every desk, every flyer was infused with their shared vision. And in those walls, others began their own journeys, from judgment to understanding, from pride to purpose. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, as they stocked canned goods in the shelter's pantry, Hudson knelt behind Maya. Not with a diamond ring, but with a folded apron embroidered with the words, "Partner for life." Maya turned, laughed, then teared up. "Only if we still volunteer every week. Every single one," he promised. They kissed among shelves of soup cans and cleaning supplies, proof that love could grow even in the humblest places. Following their engagement, the media attention returned tenfold. Gossip columns called it the charity Cinderella story. Offers poured in for book deals, interviews, even a documentary. But Maya and Hudson turned most of them down. "We didn't do this for attention," Maya told a local news anchor during the only interview they granted. "We just followed what felt right." Hudson added, "The shelter is still the center of it all. That hasn't changed." Despite his wealth and status, Hudson insisted on continuing their regular Sunday shifts. He swept floors, peeled potatoes, and refilled water pitchers like everyone else. And Maya never let him forget where they began. Not under chandeliers, but under the hum of soup kitchen lights. Their wedding wasn't held in a mansion or on a beach, but in the courtyard of the community shelter. Maya wore a flowing cream dress, her olive skin glowing under paper lanterns. Hudson stood in a simple navy suit, his brown hair swept to the side and his eyes focused only on her. The guests weren't socialites. They were volunteers, shelter residents, and people whose lives had been touched by their kindness. Instead of gifts, they asked for donations to expand the outreach center. And as they exchanged vows, it was clear that their love wasn't about perfection, it was about service, humility, and shared purpose. Years passed. The Bayview Outreach Center grew into a regional model, offering everything from meals to career mentorship. Maya and Hudson expanded their work to other cities, training volunteers and supporting local leadership. But they never forgot their roots. Every Sunday, no matter where they were, they served. Maya still wore that gray cardigan. Hudson still rolled up his sleeves. They were no longer just individuals. They had become a symbol, not of charity as performance, but of love as action. And they hoped their story would inspire others to ask themselves one simple question: what can I do today for someone else? One rainy evening, years after their first soup kitchen date, Maya and Hudson returned to the same shelter where it all began. The paint was fresh now, the floors were new, but the spirit remained. They stood behind the counter side by side, serving trays to familiar and new faces. A young couple, volunteering for the first time, asked, "Is it true this is where you two met?" Maya smiled. "Not exactly. This is where we saw each other clearly for the first time," Hudson added, "and where we learned what love really means." They shared a glance, tired, content, and full of gratitude. This wasn't just their love story. It was a reminder to the world that kindness makes the best foundation. In the end, their story wasn't told through grand gestures or luxury. It was told through small acts, one ladle of soup at a time, one listening ear, one willing heart. Maya and Hudson taught that a real relationship isn't tested in candlelit dinners or luxury vacations, but in places where compassion is needed most. Their lives weren't perfect, but they were deeply meaningful, and as they grew old, still showing up every Sunday, people would smile and say, "There go the couple who built everything out of service." Love doesn't need silverware to shine. It just needs two hearts willing to serve. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional, inspiring journeys that remind us of what really matters.